Hello and welcome. This is the Provider Solutions and Development Outreach Team's presentation on training to practice, the best place to start for smart resident job seekers. This presentation is geared towards residents who are completing their training and seeking their first job, as we will be covering the essential steps for conducting an effective job search through our three-phase process. We're going to cover how to craft a standout CV and cover letter, how to interview powerfully, and much more. So let us start by introducing ourselves. My name is Emily Hartley. I have a decade of experience in business, leadership development, and corporate operations. I've been with the PS&D outreach team for the last 2.5 years, and I work alongside Dirk as a GME advisor to bring business development tools to both residents and programs across the US. I'm joined by my colleague Dirk today. Dirk?
Hello, I'm Dirk Foley. I've worked in healthcare for about 25 plus years now. I spent a decade in provider relations and network development for 2 Oregon-based insurers. I then went into academia on the medicine side and worked with pre-med students, overseen medical students in the student affairs capacity, and have even worked with physicians in practice. So I'm really excited to be adding this residency piece and supporting residents in taking on and achieving their career goals.
Okay. Quick background on our team for context. So the outreach team was founded within Provider Solutions and Development, a nationally recognized recruiting firm supporting both the Providence Health System and a rapidly growing group of external partners. And it was after years of working with internal Providence residents that it was clear residents feel largely underprepared when it comes time to engage in recruiting conversations. So the outreach team was created to provide direct support to training programs by developing tools and equipping residents to approach their job search proactively and show up to employment conversations equipped to put their best foot forward. So as outreach advisors, Dirk and I are here to be sounding boards for you, help you make informed choices about your career future and feel empowered when transitioning to the driver's seat of your career. So we love guiding residents towards the right employment fit based on your goals and objectives, because we can help you clarify that vision. And that will then positively impact your job satisfaction, your career longevity, and ultimately the quality of patient care that you provide. So let's take a look at the process holistically.
This is our 3-phase process, which we've created. It's what we consider to be the ideal prioritization as you prepare for your employment search. As you can see, it's a progressive approach with the goal of you being informed and prepared as you move towards your graduation. Taking small amounts of time throughout your training years has a huge impact on your future career. So following this 3-phase process will help you to clarify and refine your career goals, effectively prepare for and engage a focused job search, and then to negotiate and step powerfully into your first dream job. You can find this template on our GME Lounge. We'll have an address for that at the end of the presentation. You'll notice we don't have any dates or timelines specifically on this sheet. Your search is your own. We find that most job searches have shared characteristics, but are unique to the individual that's searching for the job. So we encourage you to schedule a one-on-one with either Emily or myself, because we can help you answer questions or help you get unstuck if you're stuck. Biggest takeaways from looking at this are your employment search is based on your needs and wants and your specific career goals. And we're here to help you if you get stuck. And 3, there's a huge mental shift that happens as you're graduating from a training program. You've been reporting to someone. All of a sudden, you're in front of your future employer dictating your career. You're in the driver's seat there. So we want to help you feel prepared and empowered when you get there. Our agenda today is going to cover basically that timeline, laying the foundation of an effective job search. We're going to cover tips for the search process, identifying good job matches, networking, interviewing, and finally, we're going to cover some contract negotiation points and physician onboarding. The goal, again, of this presentation is to help you move towards refining your career goals, effectively preparing and engaging that job search, and then negotiating to step powerfully into your dream job. We will share with you how to successfully prepare, optimize your search efforts, and what to know about yourself and your contract before you sign on the dotted line. We're also going to give you a glimpse into what to expect from the onboarding process and how you start work. Emily's going to lead off by covering the key steps as you take your first steps into this process.
Love it. Thank you, Dirk. So before starting an employment search, we encourage all job seekers to assess their wants versus needs. So doing some self-evaluation, you will then have a clear framework for your job search. And this exercise of getting to know yourself will make you not only more confident in writing, but also in interviews and when signing the dotted line. So as you think through and evaluate practice setting, ask yourself, do I like knowing my patients and being known by my community like I would in a rural practice setting? Or do I value seeing a patient and having amenities outside office hours like I would in an urban setting? When you think through practice type, consider, do you like clocking in and out as you would as an employee, or do you prefer the autonomy of a private practice setting? There's also the road warrior lifestyle of locums tenens. So if that's appealing to you, make note of that. Do you prefer practicing the full scope of your specialty or prefer a subset of it? What about call? Is a more onerous call schedule a deal breaker? What about the specific location and lifestyle considerations that you and your family need to thrive? Well, getting as specific as you can in completing your assessment is going to set you up long term. And the great news is there's options for you. So take the time now to do some self-discovery. It's going to lead to greater efficiency in the months ahead and long-term greater satisfaction for both you and your partner. Now that you know where you want to practice, you can build your CV to support that objective. Your CV is arguably the most critical document for your employment search. So now is the time to create a master version so you can easily engage opportunities as you identify them. Now, the purpose of a CV, as you probably know, is to provide a summary of your professional qualifications and experience. So think of it as a highlight reel of how you came to be where you are today. We'll show you a visual of a well-done CV here in a moment, but let's talk through the fundamental elements that need to be included. First, you want to ensure you provide a comprehensive summary of the following 4 categories: your education and training, work experience, skills and certifications, and your academic achievements. And then second, really pay attention to formatting, because formatting is just as important as the content. Statistically, hiring managers these days are spending about 6 to 7 seconds doing an initial scan of your CV and trying to determine if you are someone they want to talk to. They're trying to do that as quickly as possible. So if your CV isn't in a consistent, easy to read layout, they might pass you up as a potential candidate right off the bat. And then some key other considerations, we encourage you to use black ink only. Don't get crazy in the formatting and choose some elaborate template. Be really streamlined, using bullet points for itemized lists, avoiding all caps aside from subheaders. And we also encourage you to avoid lines that cut across the entire page, as that interrupts the scannability of your document. And also, no headshots are needed. CV length is about 1 to 2 pages for new graduates. Don't worry, because as you progress in your career, your page count will increase, but until you have that tangible experience, you are going to target 2 pages tops. The caveat here, one caveat here, I should say, is if you have extensive research experience that's going to put you well beyond the 2 pages, you can choose to either include it all or choose only the most impressive and relevant to the job research for brevity's sake, and then include an additional page with all of your research. And in that situation, you would just note an asterisk in the section noting that you have additional research experience available upon request. And then with your margins, 0.5 or greater will help you maximize the real estate on the page. And with font, 10 to 12 point font is with the exception of your header, is the target for legibility. Your header is, you can make larger font, and we encourage you to put it in bold because that's arguably the most important information, is how somebody is going to get a hold of you. So that is where you can, and that's something that you can emphasize. Now, because hiring managers are spending so little time reviewing a CV, how you sequence the information is key. Feel free to screenshot this slide. This is the sequence we advise to ensure your most impactful accomplishments are not missed. And I want to call out a couple things here. Your header includes your name, your credential, don't forget your credential, you've earned it, and contact information in the form of email and phone. No mailing address is necessary. Make sure to order your bullet points within each section in reverse chronological order, so the most recent experience is listed first. And as you are evaluating what to say in each section, remember that you want your most impressive and relevant to the job experience to really come through within each section. So be selective there. And then lastly, we want to remind you that you can always spin experience. We know that you're coming from a broad spectrum of backgrounds here. So this is where pulling in language from the job description or researching the values of an organization could be really advantageous to you to be able to incorporate some of that relatable language into your CV. Bottom line is make sure that if asked, you can speak to anything that you put on your document. So you want to be very selective again and be intentional with what you're choosing. Last couple notes here. When it comes to research and publication, ensure you've got the proper citation format. And if you speak another language, be really straightforward in your description of level of proficiency, i.e., are you conversational, fluent, medical, basic? Don't spend the time trying to describe your level of proficiency, just state it point blank. Now let's look at an example. So here, notice the header. Notice the header is larger. It's captivating the attention. The 0.5 margin is giving a good amount of space to work with on the document. Notice how date ranges are in reverse chronological order and everything looks uniform. So the dates are on the left, all city states are on the right. Consistent font all throughout, consistent bullet points formatting there. There's also clean page breaks. We call a section an orphan section. If you are splitting the information between a page break, you want to avoid that. Notice how the 10 to 12 point font is nice and legible. There's no lines cutting across the page throughout, which interrupts the flow. With the exception of the separation of the header. That's a good place for a line if you're passionate about that. There's also no headshot. Like we mentioned, that's not the current standard. We want to eliminate the chance for bias there. So no need to provide a photo. And lastly, note the reference section down at the very bottom of the document where it says available upon request, because we're going to revisit that here in a moment. All right, one of the most common mistakes we see when editing a CV is the lack of consistency. We've mentioned consistency a couple times already, but it's for good reason. So be sure to do a double check for variations in font, variation in punctuation and in formatting. Remember, the goal is to get a callback, so take the time to thoroughly review. Another way to catch the eye of a hiring manager is by tailoring your CV to include specific language, like I mentioned earlier. You want to be selective about requirements of each position of which you apply. So it's only going to come through if it's done thoughtfully and intentionally. So we encourage you to have a master CV document and then save a copy titled with the name of the position you're applying for and edit from there. Always do a test save of your PDF before submission to ensure formatting will come through in the way you want. And we highly encourage you to have someone else proof your CV with fresh eyes. Okay, I mentioned we come back to references. We're going to hone in on references for a moment. As we saw in the CV, the current recommendation is to not list your references on the document, but rather simply state available upon request. So do expect to be asked for references. So here's some steps to prepare for that request. First, identify references early. You don't want to be scrambling for references when a hiring manager asks for your list. Time is sensitive here, and you are going to be reliant on other people's schedules. So start thinking of who you want to advocate for you. Who makes a good reference? These are going to be individuals that believe in you, that have seen your abilities in real time, such as a program director, chief resident, clinical faculty, or research project lead. Any of those would be great connections to ask. When making the ask, we highly encourage you to sit down and actually have a conversation so that you can express your interest in the type of job which you're thinking about applying. Ask if it would be a good reference for you, and communicating excitement about the job is really going to help your reference go to bat for you. We actually had a program director share with us recently that he could not understand why one of his residents continued to put him on the reference list, because this was not a resident that he had a good working relationship with. So take a note from that, make sure your reference actually can speak highly of you. And you can do that by asking them point blank, am I someone you can speak highly of? And then lastly, keep your references engaged in the process by sending them the job description so they can prepare for the call, updating them when you interview, and letting them know whether or not you got the job. All right, so we're going to pivot now to cover letters. We often get asked whether cover letters are still a thing, and in our opinion, yes, they are a key piece of your application. Your CV is pretty cut and dry, an overview of your experience, whereas your cover letter is an opportunity to tell a story, to add more color and depth to your application, and ultimately capture the attention of a hiring manager by connecting the dots for them before you ever interview. So the framework of building your cover letter starts with your name and contact information. Then you're addressing the letter to the individual on the receiving end, using a name whenever possible, and then using the body of the letter to link experience and personal values with the job requirements. A great way to do this is to print out a job description, mark up the page by highlighting the experiences and qualifications that you have, that you halfway have, and that you don't yet have. This brainstorming exercise can help you directly tie different job requirements to your personal narrative, and is going to be able to enable you to speak more confidently in an interview. An example of this is, say, if teamwork is an essential function of the role, elaborate on how you have consistently demonstrated collaboration through your career. All right, so here's an example of a cover letter format so you can see how short the letter really is. Remember, there's no good writing, only rewriting when you're crafting a letter such as this. But we do encourage you to start now. So let it sit, return to it a few times until it effectively communicates what you want to say, as poignantly as possible. All right. And sometimes it's difficult for people to promote themselves. Know that you have worked hard to get here, and take this opportunity to stand confidently in what you bring to the table. Giving yourself significant lead time will give you that space to refine your voice and ultimately put forward a piece that you feel represents you well. We encourage you to keep track of where you've applied. A simple spreadsheet of the position, where you applied, and to whom will suffice. It doesn't make a good impression when a hiring manager or recruiter for a position reviews your application and then reaches out and you don't know who they are. So that's why we encourage you to keep track. Another part of any job is meeting and engaging people who can help you find job matches. So Dirk is now going to talk through networking.
Thanks, Emily. That hiring manager contacting someone and not having them remember was a real life example. So
Yeah.
Comes from some experience. Let's talk about networking. Networking really is just meeting new people. It's sharing information and building leveraged relationships. It can be a challenge though. Just putting your hand out and saying hello can sometimes feel daunting. It's definitely a numbers game. But I'm going to talk with you about, I share with you a useful tool that I use in making new professional contacts. Let's talk about some locations where you can network and find folks who can assist you in your job search, and then talk about how to engage them. Career fairs, they're coming back to be in person. So they're a great place to meet recruiters and employment contacts from across the country. Likewise, medical association conferences can put you in contact with individuals who can broaden your job search possibilities. Fairs and conferences are, as I said, both virtual and in person, and schedules of upcoming events are usually easy to find online. Many association conferences will have exhibit sections with employers with whom you want to network. Take advantage of those. Take your CV as a reference, because that's a great conversation starter. And we'll talk here about a thing called an elevator pitch and how to use that. I know from direct feedback that most residents get results networking through their clinical faculty. These people are working with you directly. They know your skills and may have some insights into the job world. So talk with them. Additionally, your professional associations have job sites, and certainly your program leadership and program alumni may be able to offer some ideas and possibilities for you. Remember that the more people who know what it is you're looking for, the better your odds are going to be at finding the right opportunities for yourself. And much like making application, networking involves meeting a lot of new people. So you like tracking the applications, make sure you have a way of managing these new contacts and following up with them in a timely manner. And I suggest creating a specific folder for your emails related to your job search, and putting everything that comes in related to that in that folder. And that will just eliminate the need to search your inbox later on. So now I talked about the elevator pitch. You may be familiar with this. It's a great tool for anyone looking to network effectively. It's a focus script that can help open a meaningful dialogue with anyone and help you in leveraging these new contacts. The premise of the elevator pitch is that you enter an elevator with the chief medical officer of the health system that you want to work for, and you have between the lobby and the 10th floor to engage that CMO and leave them really excited to know more about you and how you want to work for the organization. Ideally, it's 30 seconds or less. And focus on the most essential information, and it conveys that information in a compelling and positive way. It's really helpful to practice your elevator pitch, but don't over rehearse it. Don't let it sound too clinical. Let it be organic, comfortable, and certainly confident. So here's just an example script that you can look at for the elevator pitch. So keep it simple. 4 basic parts: your introduction, who I am, what's your present, this is what you're looking for. You've defined your wants and needs, put those out. What's your past? Do you have experience in family medicine or internal medicine or pediatrics? And you've done these kinds of clinical rotations and experiences. You volunteered abroad, any of that. And then finally, the request. Do you know someone who I can talk to? Do you have any opportunities available? That's sort of the call to action for the person you're talking to. So you can put that into effect as you start going to these conferences and fairs, and I think you'll find meeting people that much easier. So now you've assembled all of your documents and your references are ready to back you up. And now it's time to really put yourself out there and make yourself known to the job market. Let's talk some about how to go about engaging your job search. Our next topics will include when to start your search, your online presence, job boards and recruiters and how to work with each, the process of applying, certainly interviews and interviewing best practices. And then we'll finish up by talking on a high level about contract negotiations and what to expect from the signing/onboarding process. We frequently get asked about when should I start my search. So let's talk through some of those factors that can influence your timeline. We think that it's important to start early. Certainly your planning starts early. In general, we find residents have solidified their practice vision, like what they want to do and where they think they're going to be most effective which career is going to work best for them. By the middle part of their second year, they can then begin the job search in earnest as you start your third year. The specifics of when to start your job search really depends on two primary factors: your practice type or specialty, and the desired practice setting, as well as geography, like whether you're going to be urban or rural, are the primary factors that can impact when employers are willing to engage candidates. Some specialties are in higher demand than others, and the need for physicians, especially in rural areas, can lead employers to open conversations with qualified candidates when you're still in residency. So that does happen. Talking to a recruiter in your area of specialty or geographic interest for additional details on how soon before I graduate should I begin talking to employers is always valuable. And you can find those people.
Yeah.
One thing I always encourage people to do is before you put your email online, before you put yourself out there as a job seeker, is to establish and refine your online presence. This includes having a professional email and up-to-date profiles on sites like LinkedIn or Twitter. The good news for all job seekers is that there are employers, once you start making that process, who will want to contact you. We don't want to spam you, but we want to make sure you know about the opportunities that are out there. They're looking for you. So be prepared to effectively manage any of those incoming emails. As I said before, you might have a separate email address that's specific for your job search. Make it a professional email, so your name at Gmail as a possibility. And be sure once you start applying and start engaging that process that you check that email regularly so you can have timely follow-up and responses to people.
Mm-hmm.
And always remember, we're here to help with all of these pieces: CVs, cover letters, online presence. With our extensive experience, we can really help you define and refine your career goals, improve your CV and cover letter, even script your elevator pitch. We can also set up a mock interview to practice those skills. We'll talk about interviewing here in a little bit. Our email address is going to be at the end of this presentation, so feel free to reach out if you need any additional support. And now let's talk about the process of applying to jobs. So as you may be aware, the application process is now largely online. You'll be searching and submitting applications electronically for opportunities. And although that's designed to simplify and streamline the application process, it really does limit the human factor and certainly the ability to contact a person if you get stuck. So be aware of that. In general, most websites, most job search sites will require you to set up an account with a username and password that's unique to you. You may be required to retype parts of your CV or cover letter if you're not able to upload them directly. You will likely at the end sign an attestation that states that what you're submitting is all correct and factual. And be aware that individual jobs can be listed on multiple sites. So applying directly through the employer site is the most direct route there. And then, of course, be sure to double check every part of your application before submitting it so that what comes through on the other end is what you want them to see. Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in a specific organization, but don't see a job anywhere, go to their website. Most of them have a Work for Us button or site, and you can send them a general inquiry about anything open in this particular specialty, whatever your specialty is. A multi-pronged approach is always best, and applying at all the locations you can is a good thing. So we can talk now about career fairs and conferences. Oh, sorry, not that. We're going to talk about job boards. Most of you have probably been to job boards and have reviewed some of them. If you haven't, there are a number out there. Most of them will have nationwide opportunities. primary avenue for finding job opportunities and making application are these online job boards. You may be familiar with sites like CareerMD, Healthy Careers, PracticeLink. There are two primary differences in job sites. There are both internal and external job boards. Internal sites are specific to one employer, and external sites gather the open positions from multiple employers. External job boards are populated with opportunities that are shared by employers with positions that need filling. And this is really how, say, a hospital job can be on multiple sites because they may share that opportunity with Healthy Careers or PracticeLink. External sites like Healthy Careers and others will provide you with a wide array of positions across the country, which you can then filter to find opportunities that are the best match for your career goals. Again, knowing what you're looking for will help you quickly sort through those opportunities to identify your best possible matches. And as I said before, if you know the organization for which you want to work, we recommend visiting their sites first, as it's the most direct route. So now let's talk a little about the types of recruiters that you'll find out there. Both types of recruiters can help you find good job matches, but they go about their jobs in slightly different ways. An agency recruiter is an independent third party that's contracted with an employer to help them identify candidates for open positions. They may work for multiple employers nationwide or with specific geographic regions. When an agency referred candidate gets hired, the agency receives a fee. So that's how they make their money. It's a finder's fee, if you will, and that's paid by the employer on behalf of the person who's hired. In-house recruiters work for a specific organization and, like an agency, are also tasked with finding candidates for the open positions. In that they're internal to one organization, they are salaried, and so therefore there's no fee paid for hired candidates. In-house recruiters are usually based in the same location as that employer, so they may have a deeper knowledge of that local area, the culture there, etc. They may also, as part of their job, have more responsibility in the hiring process, like coordinating site visits, making candidate offers, and sometimes even working to gate the finals of your contract. So going to the next slide, let's talk now about landing your dream job. You've got a couple of opportunities. Best case scenario is you make application and you have multiple options from which to choose. You've completed your applications and now you've heard from several employers that they want to schedule you for an interview. Let's chat about how to engage that process and make your best impression once you're face-to-face with new employees or new employers. Interviewing. It's a really unique set of skills. We don't use them every day. And it can be really intimidating and nerve-wracking for many, especially when the stakes are high. So I want to share some tips that will allow you to engage your interview day and make a powerful impression for these potential employers you're talking to. First of all, remembering that interviewing is a two-way dialogue. You're getting to know them as much as they want to know more about you. To that end, be sure you have your own questions and make sure through the course of that dialogue that that organization is going to meet your needs as well. One of those questions should be to ask when they're planning to make their decisions so that you can gauge your time frame for both graduation, other offers and interviews you may be having, etc. Make sure you're arriving early and dressing professionally. Again, that's from experience. Engaging everyone throughout your day in a positive and engaging manner. Plan for a full day at an interview and make sure you take notes, because after the fact, thinking back, oh, where did that person and I cross paths? If you have good notes, you can be able to compare apples to apples if you have multiple interviews. Interviews are either going to be virtual or in person. And can either be one-on-one or in a panel format where you'll meet with multiple people. For virtual interviews, which may start this process for you, one, have a reliable internet connection and a professional background behind you or a filter. Make sure that you're not going to be disturbed for the time you're on that call. You want to avoid distractions as much as possible. And then, of course, smile and engaging the camera as directly as you can. It feels a little weird sometimes, but that's also helpful for engaging the person on the other end. Interview questions are really for the assessment of the candidate, mutual assessment. There are standard questions in 3 primary forms. Experience verification questions, and that is verifying elements of your CV. Types of questions include, tell us about yourself, or what was your role in that research project, or timeline verification. What were you doing between X date and X date, if that's not called out specifically on your CV? And these questions evaluate features of your background and verify elements that might not be clear to the interviewer. Then there are opinion questions, which, probably the most common is, what are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? But you may also be asked, why are you interested in this position? Purpose of these questions is subjectively to analyze your fit and a personal assessment, how you see yourself and your own personal goals. And finally, there are behavioral assessment questions. And this type of question includes, what did you do when you had a breakdown with a colleague? Or explain a creative solution you had to a patient care problem. The purpose of these questions is to evaluate how you think about, engage, and resolve situations. They're really useful for employers in understanding your thinking process and your values alignment with that particular employer. The anagram we use is STAR. So when thinking about how to respond to any interview question, what was the situation? What was the task that was at hand? What action did you take? And what was the result? What was the outcome? What did you learn? That can help make answers nice and concise. And again, we are here to help you practice. If you want to set up a mock interview, we're happy to do that. And finally, about interviews, if you're asked, like, do you have other offers? Are you, looking at other employers? Be forthright. It's okay to talk about, yeah, I have 3 more interviews, or I have 2 more interviews, but I'm still very interested in this position. That's not a bad thing to talk about. Finally, at the end of a site visit or of an interview, you may have a site tour or even an opportunity to meet the rest of the team in a social event, what we call a site visit. So groups usually invite their top candidates to meet their team and tour the site. During this visit, you'll meet with the key folks, the players, chief medical officers, staff in your group, and it may be just a gathering in the site or in the facility, or a social event somewhere. And they may offer you a tour of the local area, or sometimes even connect you with a realtor if you're thinking about buying a house in that region. Once you've identified your best match, you're going to enter that final phase of the job searching, going back to our 3-phase timeline. Emily's going to talk next about the things to think about when you're ready to talk contract.
Okay, so you've clarified a strategic plan for your future. You've written a stellar CV and cover letter. You've established great connections through networking, crushed your interviews, and now you've been offered your dream job. So let's talk about the key considerations that you'll be making before signing with a future employer. A job offer will be made to you either by phone or by email. Typically, candidates are first extended an offer letter or letter of intent, which includes the salient details of your employment and often pieces that may be negotiated. So after the offer letter and its details are agreed to, a contract will be drafted and sent via email for signature. Be sure to read through the offer thoroughly to ensure it reflects what's been discussed. And if you're making any changes, get them in writing. If you have any questions with legal language or have pause about whether or not the contract terms are what you think they are, we really encourage you to engage a physician lawyer. The money spent for legal input is a worthy investment when it comes to a binding agreement such as this. So when you get that final contract and are interested in pursuing the opportunity, you want to respond with the expressed interest and communicate your timeline for making your final decision, especially if you are getting some outside input. And in the event you choose to decline, do so professionally. This is not a time to burn bridges. All right. So then you have reviewed your offer, and we are asked frequently about what can be negotiated and how to negotiate. For new graduates, and often with larger systems, many of the contract elements are not negotiable to ensure equity amongst the group. However, it is okay to ask for what you want and what you need. And just be aware that the answer might be no, but it's always okay to ask. The most common negotiated points include start date, schedule, call, CME, vacation, loan forgiveness options, and a sign-on or retention bonus. So if you have multiple offers, leveraging competitive offers can also be helpful in your negotiation. If you do this, it must be from an employer in the same general regional demographic, because not all offers across the country are equal due to cost of living, supply and demand, etc. So remember that for any financial negotiation, there's tax liability implications or penalties when early departure from your contract as well. When negotiating, ask questions. Approach it from a curiosity standpoint versus a demand. So would it be possible to, rather than I need X, Y, Z? Money is one of those first things that applicants always want to negotiate, but just keep in mind, it's not always all about money. There is a balance. So be mindful of balance when you go to make your ask. Okay, so you've signed your contract now. You're feeling great about it. You're now ready to start the onboarding process. We've come to realize most new physicians don't understand the complex process of the requirements for getting themselves set up to practice. So here's what you can expect. First, while the steps can vary slightly from employer to employer, usually your onboarding will include background check, drug screen, employment verification, licensing, privileging, and more. So this can take time, and in most cases, have the expectation of 90 days or more. 90 days or more could impact your start date if not effectively managed. If you are a visa candidate, that time frame can exceed 90 days as well. So don't be alarmed by the duration. And I mentioned that it can be impacted if not effectively managed. So to go deeper there, you've now graduated. You're in the driver's seat, and therefore you need to demonstrate the ownership here. You'll have an onboarding point of contact, but they're there to verify completion on the back end, not to micromanage the process. So it'll be your responsibility to ensure you take action to complete what is needed in the time frame allotted. So a couple things to note here. Be on the lookout for communication about your onboarding and promptly respond to requests for information. If you will be practicing in another state following graduation, we encourage you to get your licensing process started early to avoid any unforeseen delays, and plan accordingly. If you're going to be moved, if you're planning on moving, you want to be moved and settled in prior to your start date. If you've not heard from anyone in a while, consider checking in with your point of contact to ensure things are still progressing, and let them know if you're going to be unavailable for any sort of extended period of time. If you're getting married or changing your name at all during the duration of your onboarding process, we also encourage you to wait until the process is complete before going back and making that formal name change. Okay, well, you've stuck with us for 60 minutes. Well done investing the time to equip yourself in your job search. In summary, we want to leave you with get started early. It's never too early to start networking, and employers are starting to hire residents earlier and earlier in their training. Be prepared with your career vision, your CV, your cover letter, your references to start your job applications in the very beginning of your final year. And if not, the latter part of the year prior. It's never too early to start. And the more requirements and expectations that you have, that is a good indicator that you need to start the process sooner than later. The great news, though, is that you don't have to do it alone. We offer free support services such as CV and cover letter reviews, interview preparation, general career guidance. So if you need a sounding board or have questions, please reach out to Dirk and myself. Our emails are below. And with that, we wish you every success as you complete your training and advancement through your career.